They humiliated a waitress at an exclusive party, drenching her in soda while cameras rolled. Just another jockey to board billionaires. What they didn't know, her husband was a vampire king who'd been hiding for 80 years. And they just gave him a reason to stofeting. The crystal champagne flute shattered against the marble floor, and nobody Von blinked. Nina Martinez had been serving the ultra-rich for 3 years at the Palazzo Noir Resort. And she'd learned one fundamental truth. People with too much money eventually ran out of things to entertain some thieves. Tonight, they'd apparently humiliation would do. Another round. Shouted Marcus Hale, the tech billionaire whose face was plastered across every financial magazine. He sprawled across a velvet sofa like aching on a throne. His designer suit rumpled, his eyes glassy with expensive whiskey. Around him, a dozen equally wealthy guests laughed at jokes that weren't funny and pretended to enjoy music that was too loud. The after party had started at midnight. It was now 3:00 in the morning, and Nina's feet were screaming in her regulation heels. "Yes, sir," she said quietly, moving toward the bar with practiced grace. Her white uniform was still pristine. She'd made sure of that. In her previous life, appearances had mattered even more than they did here. She was reaching for a fresh bottle when she heard it. "Hey, look at her," someone said. A woman's voice, slurred and cruel. "She's been here for hours. Doesn't she ever smile?" Nina's hand paused on the bottle. Sheck knew better than to react. She'd served far worse than drunk socialites. "Maybe she's tired of serving peasants like us," Marcus said, and the group erupted in laughter. Nina carefully poured the champagne, keeping her fees neutral. The trick was to become invisible, to be furniture, to let their words slide off like water. She washled way across the room when Marcus stood up, phone in hand. Wait, he said, his voice suddenly sharp with excitement. "I've got a better idea. Johnson, you recording?" A man with slick back hair raised his phone, grinning. Live to the group chat. 2,000 watching. Nina's stomach tightened. She knew what live streams meant in this world. Permanence, evidence, exposure. "Come here, sweetheart," Marcus called out, crooking his finger at her. Every instinct told Nina to run, but she'd played human for too long to break character. No. She approached with Theco pain tray, her face professionally pleasant. Sir Marcus took a glass. Not from the tray, but from the bar behind him. A full glass of Coca-Cola, condensation dripping down its sides. Nina's enhanced senses caught everything. The elevated heart rate of someone about to do something cruel. The anticipation enthroned. The way Johnson angled his phone to capture her face. "You know what I think?" Marcus said, swirling the dark liquid. "I think you need to lighten up. Learn to have fun." He threw the Coca-Cola directly at her. The liquid hit like ice water, soaking through her white uniform in an instant. Brown cola stained the fabric, dripped down to her shoes, puddled on the marble floor. The room exploded in lot. "Oh my God, her face." Sumi intrigued. "Do you think she speaks English?" Another voice called out. "Comprens. No compens." Nina stood perfectly still. Her hands, the dangerous part, were clenched at her sides. She could feel her fingernails linking into claws. Feel her canines beginning to extend. The hunger, always present but controlled, surged forward like a tidal wave. Here. Not now. She looks like a drowned rat. Marcus Slot, moving closer. "Hey, servant of the night. You going to cry?" "Going to?" Nina's eyes flicked up to meet his, just for a second. Whatever Marcus saw there made him take an involuntary step backward. The laughter in the room faltered. Then Johnson spoke up, breaking the moment. "Holy dude. That was perfect. The stream's going insane." The laughter resumed. Nina lowered her gaze, forcing her body back under control. Through sheer willpower, she retracted the claws, blunted Thethans. She'd had 3 centuries to learn restraint. "I apologize for Themses," she said softly. "I'll clean it immediately." She turned and walked toward the service exit, her soaked shoes squelching with each step. Behind her, She heard Marcus say something about immigrants, and knowing their place but the blood rushing in her ears drowned out the words. The service corridor was blessedly empty. Ninalina Dagans, the cold wall, breathing carefully. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Human rhythms, human control. Her phone buzzed. A text from Aurelian. "When are you home?" She looked at the message for a long moment, then typed back. Soon. Another buzz. This Honorgent. "Are you all right?" "I feel... ... Of course." He felt it. After 280 years off marriage, their bond was strong earth and steel. He'd sensed her rage across 12 Millisoft city streets. "I'm fine," she wrote. "Just a difficult customer." She finished her shift in a Borowedan eye form, avoiding eye contact with everyone. At 5 a.m., as the sun began panting the ocean gold, she clocked out and walked to her car. Nina didn't know that in a fortified office building downtown, a computer algorithm had already tagged her face from the live stream. She didn't know that facial recognition software was running her features through every database in existence, searching for a match. She didn't know that in 17 minutes, someone will whisper a name she hadn't used said in decades. All Nina knew as she drove home through the empty streets was Thatch was tired of hiding, and that Aurelian, when he saw what they'd done to her, would want blood. The question was whether she'd be able to stop him, or if this time she wouldn't even try. The mansion sat on 3 acres of woodland, deliberately isolated from Vecoastal town below. No neighbors, no witnesses, just darkness and silence. The way Aurelian preferred it. He was reading in his study when Nina's car pulled in a driveway. Before she even opened that door, he knew something was wrong. Thebon between them hummed with residual fury, sharp and acidic. Aurelian set down his book, a first edition Dante's Inferno, appropriately, and waited. 9 teared without a word. Her hair was damp, hastily washed. She wore a resort uniform that wasn't hers to large eat the shoulders. But it was her eyes that made Aurelian rise from his chair. They held something he hadn't seen in decades. Shame. Nina... Don't, she said quietly, moving past him toward the bathroom. "I just need to shower." He followed her, his preternatural speed putting him in doorway before she could close it. "Tell me what happened." "It was nothing. Some drunk idiots being drunk idiots. Your hands are shaking." Nina looked down at her trembling fingers, then curled them into fists. "I almost lost control, Aurelian, in front of 50 people on the live stream. I almost..." Her voice cracked. "I almost became the monster they think we are." Aurelian crossed the space between them in a heartbeat, pulling her against his chest. She was cold, even for a vampire. "Tell me everything." So she did. Every detail, every word, every second of humiliation. Aurelian listened in absolute silence, his jaw tightening with each sentence. When she finished, Nina pulled back to look at him. "It's over," she said firmly. "I quit. I'll find work somewhere else. Somewhere I don't have to... Show me the video." "Aurelian, no, show me." Nina's phone was still in her pocket. She pulled it up reluctantly, finding the clip that had been forwarded to her by a concerned coworker. The video had been shared in some private group, but it was spreading. Aurelian watched in silence. Watched his wife, his queen, be drenched in soda like a street beggar. Watched them mock Harochin, her dignity, her humanity. But what made his blood turn to ice was the final frame where the camera zoomed in on the man's wrist. "Pause it there," he said, his voice dropping to a register that made the windows rattle. Nina froze the frame. On Marcus Hale's cufflink, barely visible in the low light, was a symbol, a crescent moon bisected by a dagger. "Oh God," Nina whispered. "That's the Eclipse Syndicate." Aurelian's eyes began to glow, faint red light emanating from his irises. It was an involuntary response, one he hadn't experienced since the 1940s. They're not just billionaires, they're hunters. Nina's face went pale. "You think they knew?" "No, but they will soon." He pulled out his own phone, fingers flying across the screen. Within seconds, he had Marcus Hale's entire life displayed. Board memberships, political donations, shell companies. And they're buried in the footnotes of a subsidiary corporation was the connection. Marcus Hale's venture capital firm had invested $200 million in biodefense technology. A polite term for anti-vampire weapons. They exposed your face to their network, Aurelian said, his voice airily calm. Facial recognition will match you to old photographs, paintings, records. They'll know who you are by sunrise. Then we run, Nina sighed immediately. We've done it before. New identities, new continent. No, the word hung in the air like a death sentence. Nina stared at her husband. In the dim light, he looked exactly as he had the night they met in 1745. Sharp features. Midnight black hair, eyes that held centuries of memory. But no, those eyes burned with something begged him to abandon. Wrath. Aurelian. We built a life here. A purposeful life. We agreed. They threw garbage on you and laughed. His voice was soft, but it carried the weight of mountains. They humiliated the Queen oft night court like she was nothing. Like we are nothing. We are nothing. Nina's voice rose. We're just two vampires trying to survive in a world that wants us dead. You gave up the throne for a reason. I gave it up for you so you could have the human life you wanted. He cupped her face gently. Booth's hands were trembling with barely-contained rage. But they've made that impossible now, haven't they? A knock on the door interrupted them. Soft but deliberate. Aurelian's expression hardened. That would be cases you killed, cases. Nina's eyes widened. Aurelian, he's your general and an old friend. I need information. The man at the door was impossibly tall, dressed in a perfectly tailored suit that screamed old money. Cass's had Benorian's retreat hand for 4 centuries. His presence meant only one thing. War was coming. 600 miles away in a glass tower that pierced the capital's skyline like a shard of ice. Elias von Washaving, the best morning of his career. Ronatagan, he said, leaning forward in his executive chair. The analyst, a nervous woman named Dr. Petra, tapped at her keyboard. The video replayed on the massive screen. Nina Martinez getting doused with Coca-Cola. Her face captured in perfect high definition for exactly 2.3 seconds before she turned away. Facial recognition pinged 3 matches, Petra said. First, a painting from 1889 housed in a private collection in Prague. Subject identified as Katarina Noir, wife of a Romanian Annabellin. Second, a photograph from 1934 Berlin. Different name, not Amar Shung, but same facial structure, same distinctive cheekbone pattern. And third, she pulled up a centuries-old sketch. A wanted poster from 1756. Nina Delroy suspected of witchcraft in France. Leah smiled. Not witchcraft, something far more valuable. Around the conference table sat the Eclipse Syndicate's inner circle. 12 individuals who collectively controlled more wealth than most nations. They didn't just invest in technology. They shaped it, anti-aging research, genetic motivation, and their newest obsession, supernatural biology. Gentlemen, Lady Elias stood, adjusting his Patek Philippe watch. We've spent $2 billion chasing rumors, funding expeditions to Transylvania, excavating crypts in New Orleans, analyzing blood samples that turned out to be theater props. And now, thanks to Marcus' drunken stupidity, we've found something real. You're certain she's a vampire? Asked a Saudi prince on the video screen. 98% probability, Petro confirmed. No social media presence bear 2022. No birth certificate, no medical records. She appeared in Connecticutedly 3 years ago, with perfect documentation that our team confirms is too perfect. Professional forgeries. And if she's here, Elias Cantoned, then he is too. The room went silent. Everyone in the syndicate knew the legend. The Vampire King. Aurelian, a creature supposedly over 1,000 years old who'd commanded armies oft undead during Europe's darkest centuries. Most thought he was myth. But Elias had spent 15 years following breadcrumbs, and every trail led to one conclusion. The king was real and had gone into hiding. We humiliated his wife, said Dmitry Vulov, a Russian oligarch. If the stories are true, he'll come for Marcus. Let him, Elias replied coldly. Marcus knew the risks. Schwan, he joined us. He served his purpose. He was the bait. Marcus Hale, watching via video feed from his yacht, went very pale. Wait, what? You're using me as bait. You said this was just about going viral, and it worked beautifully. Leah pulled up a map on the screen. We've triangulated her home address. A mansion 12 miles outside town, registered Tona Crane. Convenient initials. We have a thermal imaging showing 2 heat signatures, both abnormally low body temperature. We have grounds to move forward. Move forward with what? Marcus's voice cracked. Elias ignored him, turning to a man in military uniform. Colonel Raymond Hardwick, former Special Forces, now the syndicate's director of tactical operations. Colonel Statison Extraction Team, ready to deploy. Hardwick said crisply. 12 operators equipped with silver choreo munition, UV flashbangs, and neural inhibitors. We've also got the prototype restraint system, silver mesh, nets coated in concentrated garlic extract. Someone snorted. Garlic. Seriously? Old legends have surprising scientificases. Petra interjected. Allicin compounds in garlic interfere with vampiric cellular regeneration. Our tests on captured subjects confirmed. You've tested on vampires. Nina Scour, who'd forwarded her the video, would have been horrified to Nasha Ben right to worry. Lesser ones, Elias said dismissively. Feral creatures, barely sentient. But Aurelian Highsize gleamed. Imagine what we could learn from a specimen of his age. His blood alone could be worth trillions. Regenerative properties, immortality factors, enhanced strength. We could patent the genetic sequences, create therapies, build an empire. And if we can't capture him, ask the Sotoprance. Then we kill him, Elias said simply. Either way, we win. A dead vampire king proves they exist, which validates RNTR research division. Olivion. That's the scientific discovery of the millennium. Dmitry leaned back. You're starting a war with creatures. We barely understand. We're seizing an opportunity, Elias corrected. The supernatural world has hidden in shadows for centuries, hoarding power, manipulating human affairs. It's time we took what's ours. And it starts with woman in that video. Trey pulled up a new image. Nina captured from resort security cameras walking to her car at dawn. Extraction team moves at 22 o'clock hours, Colonel Hardwick announced. We take her alive, bring her to Facility 7, and wait for the king to come to us. Then weaned this. Marcus's face on the screen was ashen. And me? What happens to me? Elise finally looked at him. You, keep being visible. Keep live streaming. Keep playing the arrogant billionaire. Iphorelian comes for anyone first. Better it's you than us. The call disconnected. Marcus stared at his blank screen, alone on his yacht with his security team. For the first time in his privileged life, he understood what prey felt like. In the tower, Elias Vaughn smiled. Everything was proceeding exactly as planned. Casses left at dawn, disappearing into the morning mist, like he a ghost. His parting words echoed in Nina's mind. The syndicate doesn't negotiate Aurelian. You know this now. Sitting in their kitchen as sunlight streamed through blackout curtains cracked open. Nina watched her husband pretend to be calm. He was reading financial news on his tablet, occasionally sipping from a crystal glass filled with blood, lethically sourced from a medical contact. Something Nina had insisted on decades ago. You're planning something, she said quietly. I'm reading the news. Johaven turned the page in 10 minutes. Aurelian set down the tablet. In the morning light, he looked almost human. If you ignored the predatory gray scene, every small movement, the unnatural stillness when he breathed, I'm thinking about revenge, about survival. Hemet, her eyes. They know who you are. Kasesha's confirmed it. Facial recognition hit for databases in the syndicate's network. They've already dispatched Shed Servano to the town. It's only a matter of time before they— So we leave, Nina interrupted. Tonight. We have escape routes, false identities in 6 countries. And then what? Aurelian's voice remained soft, but something dangerous lurked beneath. We run for another decade, another century. Nina, I've been running since 1944. I gave up my throne, my court, my purpose because you wanted peace. I did it gladly. But there's a difference between choosing peace and being hunted like animals. Nina felt her chest tighten. I never asked you to give up who you are. Yes, you did. He said it without accusation, just fact. The night we met in Paris, you told me you were tired of the killing. Tired of the politics and power plays. You wanted to see the world as humans see it, full of small joys instead of centuries-long schemes. I love Aduna to try, and you've been miserable. I've been content. Aurelian reached across the table, taking her hand. His skin was cool, familiar. But contentment isn't enough anymore. Not when they think they can humiliate you without consequences. Nina pulled her hand away, standing abruptly. So, what's your plan? Storm into their headquarters, kill them all. Prove every terrible thing humans believe about us. I'm considering options. You're considering war. Nina's voice rose. I know that look, Aurelian. I saw it in 1870 and 1914. In 1939, every time humans did something, that reminded you why you stopped trusting them. And every time it ended in blood and ashes, this is different. It's always different, and it's always theism. Nina was pacing now, 3 centuries of frustration pouring out. You tell yourself it's about justice, a boot protecting our kind, about teaching them respect. But really, you just misbanged King. You missed the power. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Aurelian stood slowly. When Hess spoke, his voice carried the weight of empires. I miss being able to protect what's mine. There's a difference. I'm not a possession. You're my wife. The words cracked like thunder. My queen. My partner for 3 centuries. And they treated you like trash while the world watched and laughed. Tell me honestly, Nina, do you feel nothing? No desire for justice. Nina stopped pacing. Her reflection stared back from the window. A small woman, 5'4", with delicate features that made Humanson derisitate her. She looked 30. She was 347 years old. Of course, I'm angry, she whispered. I wanted to tear that man's throat out. I wanted to show them what a real monster looks like. Then why didn't you? Because I'm not that person anymore. I chose to be better. Okay, no. Aurelian said gently, moving closer. You chose to be smaller. There's a difference. The words hit like a slap. Nina turned to face him. Tersh couldn't actually cry, burning in her eyes. I chose to live without fear, without constantly looking over Miss Holder for the next threat, the next rival, the next war. You promised me we could have that. I kept that promise off for 80 years. His expression softened. But Hive made it impossible now. Cass has brought intelligence. The syndicate isn't just coming for us. They're planning to expose our entire kind, use us for experiments. They have a facility where they've been torturing captured vampires, extracting blood, studying weaknesses. Nina felt ice crystallize in her veins. What? Cass found it 3 days ago? He was investigating rumors. Aurelian pulled up a file on his tablet, showing her grainy photographs, cells with UV lights, restraint tables. Vampires in various states of deterioration. 17 of our kind. Nina? Some of them were barely adults when they were turned. The syndicate has been hunting and experimenting on them for 5 years. Nina stared at the images, horror and rage warring inside her. One of the personas looked familiar. A girl she'd met briefly in Prague in the 1980s. Turn it at 19, who just wanted to paint and see the world. Why didn't you tell me? Shu whispered. Because I knew what you'd say. Aurelian closed the tablet. That we should alert authorities, work through proper channels, trust in human justice. But Nina, they are the authorities. The syndicate has people in every government, every intelligence agency. There are no proper channels. Nina sat back down heavily. So, we're trapped. No! Aurelian knelt before her, taking both her hands. We fight back. But I need to know you're with me. Not as a reluctant follower, but as my queen. Because if we do this, there's no going back to white dresses and pretending to be human. Outside, a car pulled up to their gate. Aurelian Shed snapped toward the window, Heist's expression darkening. There, early, Nina's heart hammered. How many? Enough. He stood, his body already shifting Ginto combat readiness. Stay inside. Let me ... no. Nina rose, feeling something she'd suppressed for decades finally break free. We face this together. For the first time that morning, Aurelian smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. The carrot at the gate wasn't an attack team. It was worse. Through the window. Nina watched a woman in a postal uniform climb out carrying a certified package. Behind her, hidden in the tree line, thermal signatures bloomed in our alliance's vision. 12 bodies, military formation, waiting. It's a distraction, Nina whispered. I know Aurelian's fangs had already extended. They want us to pan the door. The postal worker rang the doorbell. Her heart beat to steady, her movements too precise. Trained operative, not civilian. Nina could smell silver nitrate on her skin, a compound that burned vampires on contact. Mr. and Mrs. Crane. The woman called out, certified delivery. Signature required. Aurelian moved to the door, then paused. Nina, when this starts, promise me, ya want? Hold back. She met his eyes. After their argument, something had shifted between them. The careful distance she maintained, the human mask she'd worn. It was cracking. Ipromise, she said. He opened the door. The woman's smile flew as professional, her hand already reaching for something under her jacket. She never got there. Aurelian's hand shot out, gripping her wrist with an outforce to shatter bone. The weapon, a grenade, clattered to the porch. Tell your team. Aurelian said calmly. Thathy, have 3 seconds to leave before I stop being polite. The woman's eyes widened. Then she spoke into her collar mic. Target aware. Execute now. The windows exploded inward. Silver nets launched from 4 directions simultaneously, designed to entangle and burn. But Nina had already moved, her vampire speed reducing the world to slow motion. She ducked under one net, twisted past another, and came up with her hand around the throat of an operative, rappelling through the skylight. Flash in 3. The man choked out. Nina threw Wim through the wall before the device could detonate. The flashbang went off in the garden, turning night into artificial day. Screams echoed as operative burned. Aurelian, meanwhile, had pulled the postal worker inside Daned, disarmed her in 2 efficient movements. Who sent you? Go to hell, leech, already there. He dropped her unconscious and turned to face the real threat. Colonel Hardwick, standing in the doorway with what looked like a modified grenade con. Aurelian Crane, Hardwick said, or should. I call you, Your Majesty. I'm Colonel Raymond Hardwick, Eclipse Syndicate Tactical Division. You're coming with us. Ambitious, Aurelian hit his head. Stupid, but ambitious. Hardwick fired. The projectile wasn't explosive. It was a silver net compressed into a canister designed to expand on impact. Aurelian caught it midair and crushed it, silver burning his palm. He didn't even flinch. You'd matured 17 of my kind. Aurelian said softly. Did you think there would be no consequences? Hardwick's confidence wavered. Fire team, light 'em up. Of beams lanced through the darkness from every angle, Nina screamed. As one caught her shoulder, the light searing through clothes and skin. But Aurelian had already moved faster than human ice could track. He appeared behind Twiperatives, snapping their rifles sand, throwing them into the woods with enough force to break trees. Non-lethal, heckled to Nina. We need one alive. Nina? Clutching her burned shoulder, felt her predatory instincts surge forward. The pain didn't weaken her, it enraged her. She launched herself at an opportunity to reload, disarming him and pinning him to the ground. Her fangs were fully extended now, inches from his throat. "Nina," Aurelian warned. She hesitated. The man beneath her wasterified heart racing, blood pumping. It would be so easy. She hadn't fed from a living human in 60 years. By choice, by principle. But right now, with adrenaline and fury coursing through her, the choice felt irrelevant. "Please," the operative whispered. "I have kids." Something in those words penetrated the haze. Nina released him, stepping back. "Run," he ran. Hardwick, seeing his team decimated, pulled out his final weapon. A cylinder marked with biohazard symbols. Aerosolize its Sildum cork. Kills vampires in seconds. "I press this button, we all die." Aurelian app read beside him so quickly, Hardwick didn't even register movement. The cylinder was in Aurelian's hand before it, which finger could twitch. "Amateur mistake," Aurelian said, threatening a creature who survived wars you can't imagine. He crushed the cylinder, letting the silver dust fall harmless light on the ground. His hand smoked and blistered, but he didn't react. "Now you're going to deliver a message." Hardwick was hyperventilating. "What message?" Aurelian leaned close, his readies blazing in the darkness. When I spoke, his voice carried centuries of authority. "Tell Elias von Thatking remembers. Tell him I know about the facility, about the experiments, about every crime this syndicate has committed against my kind. Tell him he has 72 hours to release the prisoners and dismantle his operation. And if doesn't, then I'll show him why Hume soused to fear the night." Aurelian released him. "Run along, Colonel, and take your broken soldiers with you." Hardwick stumbled away, gathering his wounded team. Within minutes, they were gone. Stood in the wreckage off Theraholm, her shoulder already healing, adrenaline fading. "They'll come back with more, I know." Aurelian examined his silver-burned hands. "That's why we're not waiting for them." "What do you mean?" He turned to her, and in his eyes Nina saw the king she'd fallen in love with centuries ago. Dangerous, powerful, unstoppable. "I mean," he said quietly, "it's time to take back my throne." The cathedral had been abandoned since 1847, or so the historical records claimed. Its Gothic spires still pierced the Eske 30 miles north of the city, surrounded by a forest that seemed darker than its hold be. Locals avoided it, blaming bad cell service and weird vibes. They weren't entirely wrong. Beneath the cathedral, carved into bedrock over centuries, lay the Obsidian Court, the true seat of vampire power in North America. Nina hadn't set foot in it for 80 years. She'd hoped never to return. "You forgot how oppressive this place feels?" Shimmer murmured as they descended stone stairs that spiraled into darkness. Aurelian Chen found hers. "We don't have to, Dothis. We could still." "No." Nina squeezed his fingers. "You were right. Running won't work anymore, but promise Mesomething. Anything. Don't become a monster they think you are. Stay the Monty married." He kissed her forehead. "I'll try." The stairs ended in a vast chamber lit by blue flames that cast no heat, witch fire bound by ancient spells. Columns carved with forgotten lang supported a vaulted ceiling lost in shadow. And there, emerging from alcoves and shadows, were the vampires. Cassis appeared first, bowing deeply. "My king, my queen, welcome home." Behind him, Camethers. Some. Nina recognized Morgana, who had been turned during the Crusades. Victor, a Russian noble from Catherine the Great's court. Isabella, a Spanish conquistor who'd sought eternal life and found it at a terrible price. Others were younger, turned within the last century. Their eyes filled with uncertainty. 13 vampires total, not the 100 Schwad once filled these halls. "This Isrion," Aurelian's voice siegeoed in the emptiness. "Many chose exile when you abdicated," Cassis said carefully. Some joined other courts in Europe or Asia. Others simply vanished. These are wreathy ones who remained loyal or desperate, Victor said bluntly. 'Twas a massive man, 6'6", with a scar across his throat from a failed execution in 1762. No offense, Aurelian, but Yao abandoned us. Why should we follow you now? Because the alternative ice extinction, Aurelian replied. The syndicate isn't just hunting me. They're hunting all Ophis. They have a facility where they mature and experiment on our kind. How long before they come? For you, Morgana stepped forward, her medieval dress rustling. We've heard rumors, disappearances, young vampires vanishing from cities across the continent. But we assumed it was rogue hunters, not organized. It's organized. Nina pulled out her phone, showing them theft photographs Casses had obtained. 17 prisoners. Industrial scaly experimentation. They're weaponizing biology. The vampires crowded closer, their expressions darkening as they scrolled through images. Isabella, who prided herself on control, hissed on a photograph. That's Marco. He westerned in Buenos Aires 30 years ago. I thought simply moved territories. He was captured, Aurelian said. 2 years ago, they've been bleeding him ever since. The chamber filled with angry murmurs. Victor slammed his fist against a column, cracking the stone. Then we raid their facility, free our people, kill a Varion inside, and start an all-out war with humanity. And then what? Nina challenged. There are billions of them, Victor. Even if we could win, which we couldn't, what kind of world would be left? A world where not cattle for their experiments? Enough. Aurelian's voice cut through the argument like a blade. The witch fire flickered, responding to High's authority. Victor's rage is justified. Nina's caution is wisdom. We need Beth. He moved to the center of the chamber where, a throne of black stone sat empty. Nina had watched him place it there in 1944, swearing he'd never sit in a tagon. Now he approached it slowly. I walked away from this throne because I was tired, Aurelian said. Tired of the politics, the territorial disputes, finless power struggles between courts. I wanted peace. I wanted to love my wife without the weight of a crown. But peace was an illusion. The syndicate has been hunting us for years while we hide in shadows, and we did nothing. Turned to face them, but didn't sit. Not yet. I'm not asking you to start a war. I'm asking you to end one. A war the syndicate started the moment they began abducting and torturing our kind. We'll strike their facility, free the prisoners, and eliminate their leadership. Surgical, decisive, final. And then what? Morgana asked. Even if we succeed, the world will know we exist. Governments will respond with force. Let them try. Aurelian's eyes blazed. For centuries we've hidden because whiffered exposure. But maybe it's time humans remembered why their ancestors feared the dark. Nina felt ice in her stomach. This was the part she'd dreaded. The moment when her husband stopped being the man who read poetry and started being the king who'd conquered kingdoms. There's another way, she said quietly. We free Thepersoners, but we expose the syndicate's crimes to thwart. Show humanity what their protectors have been doing. Turn public opinion against them. Naive, Victor scoffed. Strategic, Nina countered. We can't win a war of extinction, but can win the moral high ground. Force the syndicate to answer for their crimes in public. Make them the villains. And suddenly, we're not monsters. We're victims of human cruelty. Aurelian stood her something like pride in High's expression. You always were that clever one. So we do both, Cassis suggested. Military strike and propaganda camping. Free our people, gather evidence, and make it impossible for governments to side with the syndicate. Isabella nodded slowly. It could work. If we're careful. Careful died when they threw Coca-Cola on my wife. Aurelian finally sat on the throne. The stone seemed toracognism, the witchfire blazing brighter. We've 72 hours before they expect my next move. We use 48 to plan, 24 to execute. The facility first, then the syndicate shot warts. You want to hit them twice? Victor grinned. Ambitious. They've made it personal. Aurelian, Saeed. Simply, I am returning the favor. Nina Washed, husband, crowned in blue fire and shadow, looking every inch the king she'd fallen in love with and feared in equal measure. Around them, the vampires knelt, even Victor eventually pledging their loyalty. The king had returned. Nina only hoped they'd all survive what came next. The facility was a concrete box disguised as a pharmaceutical warehouse in an industrial district. No guards outside. All the security was internal. The syndicate hadn't expected anyone to find it, let alone attack it. They were wrong. At 2:47 a.m., Victor tore the loading dock door off each inch. The alarm lasted 3 seconds before Morgana, moving like a shadow, disabled the security system. Aurelian led the strike team inside. 7 vampires against 40 armed guards. It wasn't a fair fight. The guards had silver bullets and UV lights. The vampires had centuries of combat experience and fury that had been building for years. Nina moved through corridors like a storm, disarming guards with brutal efficiency, but never killing. That restraint was her gift to Aurelian. Proof they could win without becoming monsters. The holding cells were in the basement. 17 vampires, some barely conscious, all bearing signs after long torture. Isabella found Marco chained to a wall, his body covered in silver burns, and let out a sound to offer anguish. We have them. Cass's reported, truth comes. But Aurelian. The syndicate knew we were coming. Of course they did. Nina realized the moment she saw the empty executive office. This facility was bait. The real trap was elsewhere. Where's Vaughn? Aurelian demanded, gripping a captured scientist by the collar. The tower, the man gasped. He's waiting for you at headquarters. He wants you to come. Aurelian's expression darkened. How many do they have, Aether? Everything. Every weapon, every contingency. You'll die if you go. Then I'll die as a king. Aurelian released him and turned to Nina. Get Theprosoners to safety. I'm ending this tonight. Not without me. Nina stepped close, her voice dropping. We started this together. We finish it together. In the tower, Elias Vaughn watched feeds from the facility with grim satisfaction. He took the bit. 30 minutes, Colonel Hardwick cripped his arm in a sling from their last encounter. But, sir, we lost the facility. All prisoners freed. 14 guards dead. Acceptable losses. Elias Gesteretto, the penthouse around them. This is where it ends. We have solar bombs on every floor, UV grids. Silver gas. The entire building is a death trap designed for one target. And he's coming right to us. What Elias didn't know is that Nina had made one call before leaving the facility. Not to vampire allies, Buto, someone she'd met years ago during her human cosplay. Rebecca Park, investigative journalist for the Washington Post. Rebecca, it's Nina Martinez. Remember when you said if Ever had a story, you'd listen? I'm sending you files right now. Publish everything. 23 minutes later, Aurelian and Nina stood outside the Mirador, looking up at 70 floors off glass and steel. Around them, the rest of the vampires spread out, ready to breach multiple entry points. This is insane, Nina said softly. Probably Aurelian took her hand. Last chance to walk away. I didn't marry you for the ease of life. They entered through the lobby. The building was empty. Evacuated hours ago, only Vaughn and his core team remained. 40 floors up in the fortified penthouse. The elevator doors opened on the 40th floor to reveal a kill corridor, silver-lined walls, UV emitters, automated turrets. Aurelian smiled grimly. Victor, your moment. Victor charged forward, absorbing the beams that would have killed lesser vampires. His massive frame tanking silver rounds as he destroyed each turret systematically. Behind him, the others surged through. They climbed. Every floor brought new defenses, new pain. Morgana took a silver round through its shoulder. Cass's was nearly caught in a collapsing ceiling trap, but they were relentless, pushing upward toward the penthouse where Elias waited. On the 60th floor, the syndicate's finale defense activated. Solar bombs designito flood entire floors with artificial sunlight. Nina saw it coming, shoving Guerrillian behind a support column as the world turned white-hot. She felt her skin begin to burn, smelled her own flesh cooking. And then it stopped. Cass's had found the control room. It's 2 floors down and cut the power grid. The tower plunged into darkness. Vampira territory now. They reached Thiepenthas to find Elias Vaughn standing alone, impeccably dressed, holding a detonator. "One button," he said calmly, "and this entire building comes down. We'll die together. You'd kill yourself." Aurelian asked, "To eliminate you? Absolutely. The syndicate survives regardless. But the world needs to know vampires can be killed. The world already knows something else." Nina stepped forward, holding up her phone. The Washington Post's website glowing on the screen. Pharmaceutical giant exposed, secret facility tortured due supernal beings. Elias's face went pale. Every photograph, every document, every victim's testimony. Nina continued. "Published 15 minutes ago. It's already viral. You're not a hero killing monsters, Elias. You're a war criminal. You're bluffing." Its own phone buzzed. Then again and again. News alerts, board members calling. Government agencies demanding answers. Aurelian moved with supernatural speed, crushing the detonator in Elias's hand. "You made a mistake. You thought we were monsters hiding in shadows. But we're survivors who've outlasted empires. Nu. You're just another human who forgot that cruelty has consequences." He grabbed Elias by the throat, lifting him off the ground. His fangs extended, and for a moment, Nina thought he'd finish it. Then Aurelian set him down. "Kneel," he commanded, his voice carrying through it of ancient authority. Elias' legs buckled involuntarily. Around them, syndicate members emerged from hiding, all falling to their knees under the psychic pressure of a vampire king's command. "Broadcast this," Aurelian told Cass's, who'd hacked into the building's security system. "To every news station, every social media platform, to the world." Aurelian spoke. "For centuries we've hidden. No more. Remember our mercy tonight. Remember that when given choice, we chose justice over vengeance." He released his hold on Elias, who collapsed, gasping. Outside, sirens wailed. The authorities were coming. The world would never be Thessum. 3 weeks later, the world was still reeling. Nina stood on the cliff of where she and Aurelian had married in 1745. Windswept overlook where ocean met ski. Back then, they'd been alone. To creatures choosing love over the politics of vampire courts. Now, as dawn threatened the eastern horizon, they weren't alone anymore. Behind them, representatives from 12 governments waited at a careful distance. The UN had demanded a summit. Aurelian refused initially. But after the syndicate's crimes went public and 3 more illegal facilities were discovered across Europe, Sudden Laverian wanted to negotiate with a vampire king. "You don't have to do this," Nina said softly. "We could still the sapper. New identities, new cantonment. We tried that." Aurelian adjusted his suit, custom-made, black as midnight. He looked every inch the monarch now. It didn't work because we're hiding from a truth. This world has never been just human. We've been here all along, and pretending otherwise only gave people like Vaughn permission to treat us as experiments instead offersons. Nina watched the sun creep toward the horizon. They had maybe 10 minutes before they'd need torture to the sheltered pavilion. And if they try to kill us anyway? Governments don't negotiate with those they fear. Then they'll learn a lesson the syndicate learned. Aurelian turned to face her, taking both her hands. That we're not interested in conquest. We're interested in coexistence. But we'll defend ourselves without apology. Movement bend them. Ambassador Chin from Chin approached cautiously. "Your Majesty, we're ready when you are." "Your Majesty. 3 weeks ago, That title had been elegant. Now it was diplomatic protocol. The negotiation was held in the pavilion as sunrise painted the sky gold and crimson. Nina sat beside Aurelian at a ball that had been ancient when America was colonies. Across from them, diplomats from the U.S., China, Russia, the EU, and a hastily formed Supernatural Affairs Commission. "Let's be clear," said Ambassador Richardson from the United States. A woman whose career had been counterterrorism until 3 weeks ago. "Your people freed prisoners and exposed criminal activity. We're grateful. But you also invaded sovereign territory, caused millions in property damage, and revealed the existence of vampires to a world that's, frankly, terrified." "You're welcome," Nina said sweetly, "for stopping the atrocities your agencies somehow missed for 5 years." Richardson's jaw tightened. "We're not here to assign blame or to." Aurelian's voice was skeet, but it silenced the room. "Because from where is it, humanity has spent centuries shenting us, experimenting on us, and pretending we don't have the samurai to exist that you do. The syndicate wasn't an aberration. It was just the most organized version of what's been happening for generations." "So, what do you want?" asked the Russian representative. "Reparations, territory, recognition." Nina leaned forward. "Wuant vampire rights codified in international law. Protection from experimentation, from illegal hunting, from being treated as creatures instead of citizens. We want what you already give humans, basic dignity." "And in-reader?" Ambassador Chin asked carefully. Aurelian gestured to a folder Cass's had prepared. "We register with governments, provide census data, submit to reasonable oversight. Reasonable, not invasive. We also offer our resources, medical knowledge from centuries of studying immortality, historical perspectives on conflicts you're repudiating, even economic investment. We've accumulated considerable wealth over the years. You're offering to integrate." Richardson sounded skeptical. "We're offering to stop hiding," Nina corrected. "We've been your neighbors, your colleagues, your friends for centuries. The only thing changed Shinusti." The negotiations lasted until sunset. Some diplomats were hostile, others surprisingly open. The Europe representative admitted they'd been preparing protocols for supernatural contact since the 1970s, Russia claimed. They'd known about vampires for decades and had a non-aggression pact with several Eastern European courts. By nightfall, a framework existed. The Prague Accords, named for the city where formal treaties would be signed. Vampires would receive protected status in exchange for transparency. Details would take years to finalize. But the foundation was set. As diplomats left, Ambassador Chin lingered. "Off their cord, you terrified them. Richardson will never admit it, but when you spoke, everyone in that room felt something like prey recognizing a predator." "We are repredators," Aurelian said simply. "Pretending otherwise helps no one. But predators can choose not to hunt, can they?" Chin looked between them. "Or will there always be someone like you, powerful enough to reshape the world on a whim, and we just have to hope Etheri Benventon?" Nina answered. "Welcome, To. We've felt about humanity for centuries. You have nuclear weapons. Biologic warfare, technology that could end all life on Earth. We just have to happy hour benevolent." "Too." Chin smiled grimly. "Fair point." She left. Alone on the clifftop, Nina and Aurelian watched the moon rise over an ocean that had witnessed countless empires rise and fall. "Do you think it'll work?" Nina asked. "Real peace? Honestly, I don't now." Aurelian pulled her close. "But for the first time in centuries, we're not hiding who we are. That's worth something." Nina thought about their sort, about serving drinks to people who saw her as invisible, about the momento Coca-Cola soaked through her uniform, and she nearly lost control. That woman felt like a stranger now. "No more waitressing?" she asked with a slight smile. "You're a queen. Queens don't serve anyone." "Technically, queens serve their people. Then it's good we have people again." Aurelian gestured to theolites below. the city where freed vampires were being relocated, where Casas was establishing a new court, where the world was slowly, painfully adjusting to a truth it had denied. In the distance, a news helicopter circled. CNN trying to get footage of the vampire azimuth. Nina waved at it sarcastically. They're going to make our lives impossible, she predicted. They already did. At least now we can fight back openly. A message buzzed on Nina's phone. Rebecca Park, your stories be nominated for a Pulitzer. Coffee sometime? I have questions. Nina Laud, showing Aurelian. The journalist wants an interview. Tell her I charge by the hour. I'm very expensive. You're ridiculous. I'm aching. It comes with the territory. Headed serious, cupping her face. Thank you for what? For stopping me from becoming the monster I could have been. For reminding me that power without conscience is just tyranny. He kissed her forehead. I would have burned the world for you. You made me save it instead. Nina leaned into him, feeling the bond between them. 3 centuries strong and growing stronger. We saved in together. That's what partners do. Below in the city, the first integrated separatal human community center was opening. Morgana had volunteered to teach history. Victor, improbably, had taken up youth counseling. The 17 freed prisoners were adjusting, healing, learning to live without fear. It was imperfect. Hate groups were already forming. Some governments were refusing to sign the accords. Violence would come. It always did. But Fortnite, standing on a cliff where they'd once hidden from the world, Nina and Aurelian faced the future without masks. The king and queen weren't Hadinga no more, and the world, for better or worse, would have to make room for them.